Chapter 871. The later stage of World Plane Realm. The aura from Su Ming's clone that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole erupted forth. However, as it did so, Su Ming realized that his level of cultivation was kept within the limits of nearing the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm no matter how much his power increased, and he could not break through that level. The clone that practices this art is imperfect. That's why my level of cultivation won't increase. If I want to make it complete, then I must fuse with something. Su Ming lifted his head. With a glint in his eyes, he took a step forward. With that one step, the broken world around him distorted and instantly started disintegrating. He saw black ink planets, sky and earth before him, and he also saw the near 10,000 members of the Yu family, along with the 3 cultivators with great levels of cultivation standing at the foot of Dao Avenue Mountain. Almost at the instant Su Ming walked out from the shattered statues of the Sun God and Moon Goddess, the gazes of the near 10,000 people immediately gathered on him. There was shock, astonishment, and also complicated feelings contained within those gazes. The buzz of discussions rose up among the people, and all of it was because of Su Ming. Is that him? He's the one that cleared the first gate in Dao Avenue Mountain, and during the second gate, the sun and moon shine together. He made the statues of the Sun God and Moon Goddess shatter. Who brought this person here? There's no way a normal member of the family could get in contact with such a powerful warrior. Could it be that the family elders asked him here? Could he be considered to have cleared the second gate of Heavenly Dao? Would the third gate of Heavenly Dao appear? The noise from the commotion rose and fell. The eldest family elder, who had the highest status among the 3 family elders in the Yu family, wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming. Just as he was about to speak, his expression suddenly changed and he rapidly moved back. Almost at the instant he moved back, Su Ming spread out his arms in midair. He had no time to deal with other people at that moment. Once he devoured the Sun God and Moon Goddess, his Yikan clone was swiftly digesting the divine essence and becoming stronger. At the same time, the divine essence which was controlled by Su Ming's soul also became stronger. In this situation, his clone that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole would also become stronger. However, he was still kept at the state where he was near the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm. If he wanted to break through that level, he would need to mend the flaws in this clone of his. Su Ming's eyes shone. He lifted his right hand and pointed at the ground, and the shards that came from the statue of the Sun God shuddered and tumbled in all directions. Then, with sharp piercing whistles, they went toward Su Ming. These shards were disintegrating swiftly in midair, turning into thin threads that looked like flesh that charged into Su Ming's right hand. Once they fused with him, they filled his entire body. The fusion happened too quickly, and within an instant, Su Ming was enveloped in those threads. From the distance, he looked like a gigantic cocoon. Soon after the cocoon was formed, the shards from the shattered statue of the Moon Goddess charged towards him from the area as well. They enveloped him within an instant, causing Su Ming to look as if he was covered in a grave. Su Ming had activated the earthen script art on himself. With the unique characteristic of the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole, he devoured the quintessence of the statues of the Sun God and Moon Goddess in an attempt to mend his close somewhat. This was the only method Su Ming could think of at that moment. There was no other way for him to make this clone of his become complete within a short period of time besides this method, and if he missed it, he would have let this opportunity to grow stronger disappear. A grave that was several thousands of feet tall floated in midair. It looked like a statue and was shining with sudden flashes of bright and dim light. There were also a large number of runic symbols around the statue, which gave it a bizarre feeling. This scene astounded all the members of the Yu family in the area. Even the pupils of the 3 family elders had shrank at the sight. His absorbing the quintessence of the statues of the Sun God and Moon Goddess to mend the flaws in his life. The expressions of the 3 people turned dark. The statues of the Sun God and Moon Goddess belonged to the Yu family, and now they could only watch as they were absorbed. The 3 elders could not help but be slightly displeased by it. However, the sinister and majestic mighty pressure spreading out from the grave at that moment made the 3 of them slightly hesitant. Just as they did not know what they were supposed to do, a sigh echoed through the entire Yu family and caused the world to tremble. Let him absorb it. As the voice spoke, a figure walked towards them from the distance. That figure was obscure in the beginning, but as the person walked over, it gradually became clear. The person was a woman. There was a veil over the woman's face, and her features could not be seen clearly. However, there was a wave of ripples that could not be described with words spreading out from her body to the entire area. As the woman walked over, the members of the Yu family were mostly stunned. Only the expressions of a few of them had changed immediately when they saw this woman. At the same time shock appeared on their faces, they immediately knelt down while trembling. Progenitor. The 3 family elders shuddered when they saw the woman and knelt down to worship her together. Their expressions were filled with reverence, along with a form of fanaticism. As the 3 people knelt down and her title rang in the air, the members of the Yu family in the area who were still perplexed swiftly remembered the portrait of a woman among the few other portraits they saw when they were offering sacrifices to their ancestors. Greetings, progenitor. As they remembered her identity, all the members of the Yu family knelt down to worship her. This woman was the only person who had cleared the 3 gates of heavenly Tao in the Yu family, their progenitor. She might not be the oldest among them, but was the strongest in the Yu family over the course of countless years. Even the founder of the Yu family could not compare to this woman in terms of level of cultivation. She stood there quietly, her head lifted to look at the grave in the sky, without saying a single word. Her silence made it seem as if the air around them had been frozen up, so all the people kneeling down did not dare to say a single word. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours went by. At that time, cracking sounds suddenly came out from the grave that encased Su Ming. Those sounds swiftly became stronger, and after a moment, they practically connected into one unending noise. In the end, a loud bang shot up into the air, and most of the grave shattered. No shards resulted from the parts that shattered. It was as if they had turned into ashes and had disappeared on their own. At the same time, a muffled sound came from the grave. The 6th disaster. At the instant that voice spoke, the world rumbled, wind and clouds were swept to the side, and a red lotus appeared in the sky in the form of an illusion. The lotus blossomed, and as it bloomed, its petals fell off one by one. When the first petal fell, the grave in which Su Ming was shuddered. The second petal, the third, they continued to fall one by one. The grave in which Su Ming was located shuddered even more furiously, and a low growl that seemed to have emitted by someone who was enduring tremendous pain faintly came from inside. When the final petal fell off, a booming sound rang out from the grave in which Su Ming was. A right hand stretched out. It looked normal, but if anyone took a closer look, they would have the misconception that no one in the world could destroy it. At the instant the right hand extended out of the grave, a power that surpassed the peak of the middle stage of World Plane Realm and belonged to the later stage of World Plane Realm erupted with a bang. At the instant the presence of the later stage of World Plane Realm spread out, the lotus in the sky disappeared. Su Ming had overcome the 6th disaster in the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole. The 7th disaster. When Su Ming's voice came from the grave once again, the grave shattered once more. This time, its destruction reached its full extent. As layers upon layers of the grave disintegrated, Su Ming's body was revealed before the people. The grave was no longer around him, and neither were there any shards that belonged to the statues of the Sun God and Moon Goddess. He did not seem any different, but only Su Ming himself knew that the flaws of this clone of his were mended due to the quintessence from the statues of the Sun God and Moon Goddess, though he was still not perfect. Still, this was enough proof to show that this method to make his clone that practiced the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole was feasible. The sky trembled. The presence of Su Ming's power erupted from his body, making it seem as if he was about to become even stronger. However, almost at the instant this presence appeared, it disappeared the next moment. Su Ming had experienced this feeling before. He knew that this was due to the flaws within this clone of his. Absorbing the statues of the Sun God and Moon Goddess had only mended some of the flaws, which allowed the chi in his clone to break through the middle stage of World Plane Realm and reach the later stage of World Plane Realm. However, once he reached this level, he could no longer go any further. Su Ming opened his eyes. At the instant he did so, the sun, moon, and stars in his eyes shone with an incredibly brilliant light. Greetings, Lord Apostle. When Su Ming opened his eyes, all the people were kneeling down on the ground except for one woman. This woman, who was the only standing in the area, looked at Su Ming before she bent her body slightly. Her voice did not echo in the air, but appeared straight in Su Ming's mind. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. At the instant he looked towards the woman, he was suddenly stunned. The woman was incredibly similar to the beautiful woman he saw within the statue of the moon goddess. They might not be completely the same, but the incredible similarity meant that the woman possessed unparalleled beauty. Su Ming could also sense the gentle power from the moon goddess coming from her body. In fact, when he looked towards the woman, he had a strong feeling that he could control her life and mind. If he wanted her dead, then she would immediately sacrifice her life without any hesitation. I am Sacred Lady Yu Ru of the moon goddess lineage. Greetings, Lord Apostle. My lord, you have the presence of the divine bodies that belong to the moon goddess and the sun god in you. It is also not just the presence of the statues, but also the vibes from their divine essence. The line of the moon goddess found the family's sacred item of the gods before the recording of history. Over the years, we have tried to have others inherit the power of the gods, and after so many years of waiting, you have arrived among us, the woman said softly, and only Su Ming could hear her words. A barely noticeable glint appeared in his eyes. Those not involved might not know that he had devoured the sun god and moon goddess, and it was logical that the woman had mistaken what had happened. After all, he had indeed used his Yikan clone to devour the sun god and moon goddess divine essence. As for those so-called divine bodies of the statues, Su Ming had indeed absorbed them, thought it was to make this clone of his more complete. It was apt for him to be known as the apostle of the sun god and moon goddess. In fact, it was even apt for him to be known as the sun and moon god. Lord Apostle, please retrieve the divine vessel from the third gate of heavenly Tao. I will offer up the power of Yin essence to help you obtain the final legacy from the gods, in order to complete my family's mission. Chapter 872. Peace arrives when the elephant is here. Su Ming's eyes sparkled. The woman's appearance and her words were rather mystifying, but after focusing his mind on the matter and falling into pensive silence, he could discover some clues. The Yu family to which the woman belonged to in the ancient past was clearly not cultivators at that time, but were members of an alien race. This race might have been known as the Gate of Tao race, but might have also been a branch of the Gate of Tao. The Gate of Tao worshipped the gods of the sun and moon. In an age that once existed, perhaps they had reached an age of glory as well, but as the era when all lives died, which the gods of the sun and moon spoke of, came about, the Gate of Tao gradually fell to ruin. The members of the race left their homeland and arrived in Black Ink Planet. From then on, the Yu family appeared. The Yu family's ancestors had never forgotten the gods they worshipped. That was why they had returned to Divine Essence Star Ocean numerous times, and in the end, brought back the enchanted vessel that belonged to the Gate of Tao. It was the 3 gates of heavenly Tao. They brought it back, and perhaps they had also communicated with the gods of the sun and moon who had woken up from their slumber. That was why all members of the Yu family were required to challenge the 3 gates of heavenly Tao. It could be that even this was not enough, and so in an attempt to cover up something, they also had guests join in the challenge. They longed for their family members to clear the 3 gates of heavenly Tao and obtain the legacy from the gods, and from there, become the apostle. Su Ming's arrival had caused him to be mistaken as an apostle due to this coincidence. That was why Yu Ru had spoken to him previously. The shamans are in Black Ink Planet, and so I've suspected that there are members of alien races who have disguised themselves to be here. Now that I look at it, this guess had been correct. As he was deep in thought, Su Ming did not speak. However, at the instant the woman finished speaking, the members of the Yu family in the area closed their eyes and fell to the ground slowly. In fact, even the 3 family elders fell into deep sleep. Only Su Ming and the woman remained. One of them stood calmly in the sky, while the other stood respectfully on the ground. At the same time, as the members of Yu family fell asleep, distortions appeared at the spot where the statues of the sun god and moon goddess shattered. As booms echoed in the air, the final gate of the 3 gates of heavenly Tao appeared. It was a cream-colored mountain rock. The size of the mountain rock surpassed the size of the statues that belonged to the sun god and moon goddess, and an elephant was carved on that mountain rock. The elephant had its nose wrapped around a scale. At the instant this strange carving appeared, a mighty pressure spread out from it, and it was so strong that Su Ming's heart trembled. The mighty pressure filled the entire area, and if it was not because the rune of the Yu family had been activated and the Yu family had been waiting for the apostle to appear, hence had been ready for this since a long time ago, then this mighty pressure and presence would have spread through the entire black ink planet during that moment. The third gate of the three gates of Heavenly Gate. Peace arrives when the elephant is here. By all means, Lord Apostle. As the woman from the Yu family spoke softly, she bent her body slightly to bow to Su Ming. He looked at the gigantic mountain rock, then at the image of the third gate on its side. Peace arrives when the elephant is here. He might have seemed calm at that moment, but his heart was trembling. He could sense that this was an enchanted vessel. This was an enchanted treasure that contained an endless amount of power, and in fact could only be activated by the power of divine essence, a divine essence enchanted treasure. While looking at the third gate, Su Ming suddenly asked, "Who brought the three gates of heavenly Tao from divine essence star ocean to black ink planet?" Yu Ru was momentarily stunned before she answered him softly, "The fourth progenitor of the family. He obtained the enchanted vessel tens of thousands of years ago. This matter is a secret within the family, and most normal family members do not know the details of this." "What is the name of your fourth progenitor? Is he still around?" A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. His voice was normal, so others would not be able to tell why he would suddenly ask this question. "The fourth progenitor's name is Yu Han. He used up all his life to activate the three gates of heavenly Tao in the past. Once he brought the enchanted vessel back to the family, he left a will, then his form and spirit were destroyed, and he died." Yu Ru's voice was as gentle as a piece of jade, just like her name suggested. "I once heard someone mention that someone from the Yu family cleared the third gate. Was it you?" Su Ming averted his gaze away from the third gate and looked towards Yu Ru. "It is indeed me. It was also at that time that I became the sacred lady of the moon goddess lineage. I obtained divine essence and awakened to my mission, but I was restricted in my movements and could not leave the Yu family. My body cannot bear sunlight, so now, what stands before you is just a shadow. Only by completing my mission will I be able to walk out of the Yu family," Yu Ru said softly. "Lord Apostle, please enter the third gate and obtain enchanted vessel. Peace arrives when the elephant is here. The Yu family will look upon you as our god and from then on worship you. You want me to enter the third gate as soon as possible?" Su Ming smiled faintly, then cast the woman a profound look. When he looked towards her, his eyes shone brightly. The woman's expression remained the same and not a hint of change could be detected on her. She lifted her head and looked into Su Ming's eyes before she spoke to him softly. "This is my mission." Su Ming continued to smile faintly. Once he turned around, he took a step towards the enchanted vessel and instantly appeared before that gigantic mountain rock. With a flash, he disappeared inside it without a trace. Yu Ru looked at Su Ming disappearing, but even when he was gone, her expression remained the same and did not change. It was as if emotions could not be detected on her. She stood there quietly and did not move, as if she was waiting for Su Ming's return. Once every 100 feet under the ground where she stood was a layer of fine, golden sand. They formed layers upon layers of obstruction, and these layers continued for 100,000 feet under Yu Ru's feet until a gigantic underground palace could be found. With the spiritual sand acting as an obstruction, even a god's divine thought will not be able to penetrate through. After all, this spiritual sand is a relic of the ancient past. As long as we believe that it can prevent all forms of investigation, then it will be able to do so. An old voice that sounded as if teeth were grinding against each other gradually echoed in the darkness within the underground palace. Once that voice spoke, green candle flames suddenly lit up in the underground palace. As the place illuminated by the green light, it looked very eerie. As the candle flames swayed, it looked as if there was a sinister gust of wind made by a malicious spirit roaming about in the underground palace. "We've waited for tens of thousands of years, and the day has finally arrived. It's a pity that this person isn't from the Yu family, or else, we wouldn't have to be so cautious." Yu Ru is a pragmatic person. She won't let anyone discover any clues, and even we cannot be certain whether she leans more towards the family, or the gods. Voices that were similarly as old as the first echoed in the underground palace. As the green candles were lit up and as most of the palace was revealed, it could be vaguely seen that there were 13 old men sitting cross-legged in there. Each of the 13 old men was older than the last. A decaying presence was spreading out from their bodies, and they looked as if they were dead. In fact, there was a faint green light shining from their eyes under the candle flames, and they looked incredibly horrifying. Their skin was dry and shriveled, and their flesh had withered, making it look as if they were only skin and bones. However, with the light from the candle flames, it could be vaguely seen that there were plenty of complicated pictures drawn on their bodies. Even if she leans more towards the side of the gods, she is still a member of the Yu family. All the pros and cons will tell her that she only has one choice. We've waited for tens of thousands of years, and the day has finally arrived. The apostle has truly appeared, and it's not a waste that we have been suffering for so many years in this place. We did not dare be exposed under the sun, and did not dare walk out of the underground palace. We hid the secret of the 3 gates of heavenly Tao, and not even our family members know about this. In truth, over the course of tens of thousands of years, Yu Ru was not the only one who cleared the 3rd gate. Including us, there were 14 people who cleared the 3rd gate of heavenly Tao. All of it was worth it. As long as the progenitor's plan is successful and as long as the progenitor can possess the apostle to become God, then, from then on, our branch of the gate of Tao will only believe in ourselves and worship our own people. The Yu family will rise to power, as long as the progenitor's plan is successful. We shouldn't fail. We've prepared for so many years, and the 13 of us have even given up everything to help the 4th progenitor, Yu Han. In fact, we've already destroyed the life souls of the 3rd, 2nd, and even the 1st progenitor. All of these, if we still don't succeed, we'll definitely succeed. That's right. We'll definitely succeed. The 4th progenitor accidentally fused with the 3rd gate in the past. Over tens of thousands of years that we have offered help, we've suppressed the vessel spirit that had originally fallen asleep and turned it into a new vessel spirit. What the progenitor needs is just possession. We've prepared for this for tens of thousands of years to possess the apostle. HMPH, apostle, my foot. It's just a body formed by the wills of the spirits of the sun and moon gathering on that person. The others don't know the truth, but we've known since a long time ago that the moment we chose to worship them, we would lose all forms of intelligence the moment we become apostles. As long as you believe it, it will exist. Such a mighty power. This is the source of the spirits of the sun and moon's divine essence. We must have control over this power. The gods have already died, and the path of immortals have already faded away. This is an era when all lives will rise to power. As the 13 old men in the underground palace spoke with excitement and anticipation, Yu Ru stood calmly on the ground above. Her face remained indifferent, as if she was not concerned with any of these, but also as if she did not know what could possibly cause her emotions to change. Above her, within the 3rd gate in the sky, within peace arrives when the elephant is here, a majestic sea of clouds appeared before Su Ming's eyes. This sea was boundless. It covered the entire region. When he looked over, he could see that there seemed to be an elephant crying out in the clouds in the far distance. The sound of the elephant's trumpets was echoing faintly. As it shook his heart, the divine essence in his soul boiled because of it. Peace arrives when the elephant is here. Su Ming took a step forward and moved swiftly through the sea of clouds. The Yu family might seem normal, and while I can't find any clues from that Yu Ru, not even from her words, all of this is just too smooth. Su Ming let out a cold harumph. While remaining wary, he gradually approached the trumpeting elephant. 1. Peace arrives when the elephant is here. It is a traditional pattern that means luck. The meaning of the whole thing means that when the world is at peace, crops will grow well. Means that the world is at peace, and there are elephants. The whole thing is elephants are the signs showing the world is at peace. Since elephants live for a long period of time, they were seen as auspicious creatures. Chapter 873. Promise fortune comes from risks. Su Ming had originally come to the Yu family with the intention of gaining a foothold in Black Ink Planet and blending into its crowd at an even faster pace so that he could investigate the things related to the bald crane. In fact, if he had the chance, He even wanted to go to Divine Essence Star Ocean so that he could take a look at what sort of universe was contained within the place that was known as the Star Ocean within the land of Divine Essence, and just how many of the alien races he had never seen before. Then, he would wait for a chance. Once his Ikang clone became stronger, he would search for a way to leave the barren lands of Divine Essence and rush into the region where the forces of power from the four great true worlds are stationed and return to the four great true worlds. Then, he would go back home. However, this plan had changed slightly after Su Ming sensed the shaman's presence when he stood outside Yu family's relocation rune. He had discovered the existence of the shamans, and this caused him to come up with a myriad of interconnected thoughts, and he had also thought about Xianxia. In fact, in the depths of his heart, Su Ming had another hope. He hoped to see berserkers here. After all, if the shamans could be here, then there was no reason for the berserkers to not be here. That was why Su Ming had chosen to help Yu Chenhai and challenge the three gates of Heavenly Tao. He had not needed to challenge the gates in such a flashy manner, and he had not intended to do anything in a high profile, but after going through the things in the first gate of Heavenly Tao, he had sensed a power that tempted him. As long as he believed in it, it would exist. That was why Su Ming had not hesitated stepping in when the second gate of Heavenly Tao appeared. Within it, he had received a great serendipity with his Ikang clone, but even so, he had not received the power that had tempted him just then. However, it was already enough. If the woman had not appeared and he had not detected the presence of an enchanted treasure within the third gate, he would not have challenged it. However, an enchanted treasure that could only be activated by Divine Essence and could stir up Divine Essence had tempted Su Ming into making such a choice. That was why he challenged the third gate, having decided to take the risk. Even if he suspected that the Yu family had an ulterior motive, he believed that his act of devouring the Sun God and Moon Goddess had not been seen through by anyone. He had the Ikang clone with him, and with it, his chances of success became greater in this gamble. As Su Ming approached the elephant's cries in the sea of clouds became incredibly clear. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He moved forward and instantly shot through the sea of clouds. At the moment he closed in, he saw the elephant. It was a gigantic elephant that was covered in fur which was purplish black and was tens of thousands of feet tall. Its limbs were bound by the clouds, and it was swaying its nose continuously in agony. Its cries spread out in all directions, because of which the clouds kept tumbling about. Its eyes were murky, and it had huge tusks. A ferocious intent spread out from the elephant. As it roared, the tusks looked to possess a power that could destroy the world, and fear would raise within anyone who felt it. There was a gigantic round bowl under its body. That bowl was also several tens of thousands of feet wide, and it had the elephant completely contained within. Su Ming immediately saw that there were 4 chains that extended upwards from around the bowl, and only when they were nearly 10,000 feet above the bowl did Su Ming see a black staff. It was a scale. The bowl was part of a hanging scale, and the black staff was the beam. It stretched out endlessly, and it was clear that there should be a weight somewhere in the distance, above the beam that could weigh this elephant. Su Ming's heart trembled at this scene. He was unable to distinguish whether the elephant or the scale was the enchanted treasure. There was even a possibility that both of them were the enchanted treasure. This is the enchanted vessel that belonged to the Sun God and Moon Goddess when they were at the peak of their power. If that's the case, then it's accurate to say that there are 2 treasures. A focused glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He did not immediately take action, since that would just be reckless, but instead leaped up and charged along the beam. However, even when he saw the end of the beam, he did not find the weight of the scale. This was a scale that did not have a weight. No promise. At the moment Su Ming realized that there was no weight, a cry that seemed to be emitted due to pain suddenly rang through the world with loud, booming sounds. No promise. Where is the promise? Where are your promises? I swallowed the weight, because I swallowed the promise. Do not believe in the promise. The promise is the source of my strength. Believe in me, and I will exist. I am the enchanted vessel. Peace arrives when the elephant is here. I do not have a promise. I want to weigh a promise and find out how heavy it is. I want to know how heavy a promise is. I want to know just what is a promise. There was endless suffering contained in that voice. It sounded like roars as it echoed in the air. When Su Ming's heart trembled, that voice suddenly became gentle. You came. You inherited the divine essence that belonged to the sun god and moon goddess. You brought the promise here. Give me a promise. I will follow you and find out how much a promise weighs. Give me a promise. What promise do you want? Su Ming sucked in a deep breath. When he spoke, he had already noticed that the one who spoke was the elephant in the distance. It was the one speaking while crying out, however. Its eyes were murky, as if it was deep in sleep. It was like the words that were echoing in the air came from its soul. Promise me that you will take me away. Make this promise with me, and I will become your strongest supreme treasure. I will use this body of mine to stomp over all galaxies. Give me a promise, that voice roared. This time, it was no longer in pain, but instead had a form of madness contained within it. In the mid of this madness, the sea of clouds roared and swept out in all directions, causing the endless sea to swiftly rotate before turning into a gigantic vortex. Loud, booming sounds spread out, and as the sea of clouds tumbled about before spreading out non-stop, the center of the world no longer have any clouds. Because of this, Su Ming could finally see the entirety of this enchanted vessel with just one glance. Su Ming did not speak. He looked at the enchanted vessel known as Peace Arrives When the Elephant Is Here, looked into the elephant's eyes, and a freezing glare gradually appeared in his eyes. As long as you believe in it, it will exist. Su Ming's lips slowly curled up into a cold sneer. The Abyss Builder's inborn ability was possession, and he had even performed it twice. As he looked at the elephant's murky eyes at that moment, he could tell it was clearly deep in sleep, which could only mean that the voice's appearance. There might seem to be no temptation in this place, but in truth, it was waiting for Su Ming to make a promise. If he believed in those words, then whoever said those words would come into existence. It might seem abstruse and insubstantial, but in truth, this was the source of this power. Are you intending to possess me? Then I'll play with you. Su Ming chuckled coldly. At the instant a freezing glare appeared in his eyes, he opened his mouth slowly and said, I promise to take you away. At the instant he said them, a crazed bout of laughter cut off the elephant's voice. There was an ancient air contained within that laughter, along with extreme joy as well as a craziness that came from finally being set free after being oppressed for tens of thousands of years. I will fulfill your promise. At the instant the laughter shook the sky and earth, a great will suddenly erupted from within the enchanted vessel known as Peace Arrives When the Elephant Is Here. The strength of that will cause the world to tremble, and in an instant, it charged towards Su Ming to possess him. Chapter 874. A Mere Firefly's Light. Possession. Su Ming stood at where he was and did not take even a step back. He had long since guessed most of what was going on. When he saw the vessel spirit from the enchanted vessel known as Peace Arrives When the Elephant Is Here, a glint appeared in his eyes. He even took a step forward, as if he was willingly offering himself up to be possessed. The great will closed in on him instantly. Yet when he saw that Su Ming had not retreated but had instead moved forward, he became uncertain. However, the chance now was one that had arrived after he waited for tens of thousands of years. There was no way he would give it up due to a moment of uncertainty. As the will came upon him with loud booming sounds, it descended on Su Ming's body. That will was like flowing streams of water that surged into his body through his pores. A crazed laughter also echoed in Su Ming's mind. It's your serendipity to become my body. Since you promised to take me away, then you will belong to me. A booming sound rang out in Su Ming's mind, but his expression remained calm. It was as if he was completely unconcerned about being possessed. As the booming sounds reverberated violently in his mind, he sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. The Abyss Builder's inborn ability allows us to possess others to live. You are just a vessel spirit in an enchanted vessel, and there is even a possibility that you aren't the real soul, but a soul fragment that had accidentally fuses with the enchanted vessel. How dare you possess me? At the instant Su Ming closed his eyes, his thoughts burst forth in his mind and soul with a loud sound that was like thunderous boom that could shake the sky and earth. Once the great will surged into Su Ming's body, the elephant's eyes slowly became clearer and it fell into deep sleep. The light on its body became dark. Even the scale lost its luster. Then, this world formed by the sea of clouds became dead silent. There was no tumbling of waves, no movement of clouds. Everything seemed to have been frozen. However, compared to the tranquility of the world, a storm was now raging in Su Ming's mind, and booming sounds as loud as those when mountains collapse reverberated in him. Su Ming's mind was like a purple galaxy that was as boundless as the universe. At that moment, within the purple galaxy was a layer of gray fog that covered an area of some several tens of thousands of feet. This might not seem big, but if anyone looked at it from a close proximity, they would be greatly shocked. As that gray fog tumbled about, a contour of an old face emerged. The expression on that face was twisted, with an extreme joy as well as a madness born due to being oppressed for tens of thousands of years. Now, that face was spreading out endlessly to devour the place. Ha ha! I've waited for tens of thousands of years. Tens of thousands of years. And the apostle has finally arrived. I'll possess you and treat your body well, and I will let you have a taste of the pain of losing your body. The gray fog laughed madly in the purple galaxy as it continued spreading to cover the entire area. In the blink of an eye, it had already grown 10 times larger than its original size. If anyone looked at it then, they would find that the gray fog had become even greater in mass, and would be slightly terrified. Ha ha! Playing hide and seek with me, Very well, then. I will find your soul. Your mind might be big, but you can't escape. I will search for your soul slowly and devour you. What I have is time. Madness appeared on the old man's face in the gray fog. It spread out once more, tumbling into the distance. Time trickled by slowly. The gray fog continued expanding through the galaxy, but Su Ming's soul could not be found. The old man that was the gray fog looked at the boundless purple galaxy, and his expression slowly turned dark. I'd like to see where you can run to. He looked as if he had sucked in a deep breath before he let out a quick breath. When he did so, the gray fog immediately grew in size exponentially before tumbling outwards into the endless area. In the blink of an eye, the gray fog occupied most of the galaxy. If someone looked over, they would find that this galaxy was filled with the old man's gray fog. When he sucked in another deep breath, all parts of the purple galaxy turned gray with a bang. The place was completely filled with the gray fog. The purple galaxy, which was Su Ming's mind, no longer seemed like it belonged to him but to the old man. The old man laughed madly, but then he came to an abrupt halt, and his expression turned dark once again, because he, who thought that he had occupied Su Ming's mind, found that he could not find Su Ming's soul. Damn it! Brat, you sure can hide yourself well, but I'll still be able to find you. The old man let out a low growl. No one could say what sort of divine ability he executed, but the gray fog immediately exploded with a bang before turning into an endless amount of gray threads. As if they wanted to break apart this galaxy, they moved outwards with loud, booming sounds. Time continued passing. Several hours later, the old man's crazed voice echoed in Su Ming's mind. Just where are you? I've already occupied your entire mind, so why can't I find your soul? That's impossible. Your soul has to be hidden here. Even if you don't come out, even if you hide for tens of thousands of years, it's still useless. I'll go and control your body right now, and if you dare to come out and interfere with me, I'll immediately devour you. The old man roared, but soon, his expression changed, because he realized that he could not leave this place, much less control Su Ming's body. What's going on? How can this be? The old man's expression changed drastically. Unwilling to accept this, he tried once again to leave the galaxy that was Su Ming's mind and control Su Ming's body, but after multiple tries, he discovered to his shock that he still could not do so. Based on what he knew, this was something that should be impossible. He could not think of any reason. As he roared, he looked as if he had gone crazy. Fog tumbled about, as if it wanted to cause Su Ming's mind to burst like a balloon. Damn it! I'll find your soul. I have ample time, just you wait. Once I find your soul, I'll make you know just what pain is. As he was raving, a calm voice suddenly traveled out indifferently from all directions. You want to see my soul? Come here. When the old man heard that voice, he immediately roared. This roar came from the gray fog, and it was as if the galaxy he had occupied was roaring. As you wish. When Su Ming's cool voice traveled into the galaxy calmly, a galaxy that was the same size as the one occupied by the old man's gray fog suddenly appeared beyond the one that was occupied. Then, another one, and another one, and another one appeared, until an endless amount of boundless galaxies were in all directions. There was a total of 100,000 galaxies. The old man had only occupied one out of 100,000 galaxies. Su Ming's soul actually formed a complete universe. This scene completely stunned the old man, and a dazed look appeared on his face for an instant. This surpassed his imagination. He had never imagined that a person's mind could be so terrifying. A shudder ran through the old man's mind, and he gritted his teeth and roared, "Where are you? I am right before you. Lift up your head, and you will see me." The thing that answered the old man was a loud boom formed by all 100,000 galaxies speaking at the same time. The old man instinctively lifted his head, and he started trembling furiously. He saw. Chapter 875. We welcome the progenitor's aggression. He saw a mysterious object of an indescribable size within the boundless cosmos. It was difficult for him to compare what he saw with anything else. It seemed like a gigantic pillar, but the breadth of it seemed to have replaced the entire cosmos, causing all those who saw it to feel as if they were looking at a barrier. This is. The old man's mind trembled. The grey fog which was him started rising and falling violently due to the changes in his emotions. He slowly raised his head to the limit, and he found that he could still not see the top of the gigantic pillar. When he activated his vast divine sense and used it to look at it, the fog which was him suddenly stopped trembling, as if it had become still. It seemed a single bit of emotion could be stirred up in his heart. He was stunned speechless. His mind went blank, and there were no longer any thoughts in his head. The only thing that remained was the absent-minded state that came upon him due to extreme shock. He could see that the surface of the gigantic pillar seemed like tree bark, but he could not believe that such a big tree that was completely inconceivable could exist in the world. However, after a moment, when he saw the gigantic tree crown, the endless branches, and the entirety of the boundless tree, he descended into madness. What is this? You. Who are you? He shivered. During that moment, his heart was filled with fear and disbelief. I am the person you wanted to possess, Su Ming's gigantic purple Yikang clone stated flatly. His voice immediately reverberated in the cosmos with loud, booming sounds. Just the spread of his voice alone already caused the grey fog to tremble so much that it almost disintegrated. That's impossible. You're the apostle. The apostle inherits the sun god and moon goddess legacy, but the sun god and moon goddess were injured badly during the era when all lives died. Even if you obtained their legacy, it's impossible for this sort of soul to appear in you. You aren't the apostle. As the old man shouted shrilly, the grey fog which was him immediately started tumbling about and moving backwards, trying once again to escape from Su Ming's mind. However, he had already attempted this previously, and even if he tried it again at that moment, it was of little help. This was Su Ming's mind. This was the cosmos formed by all 100,000 of his galaxies. This was the place where his soul was at its strongest. This was the place where Su Ming was the master. Su Ming had been able to possess Yikang, and because of this, there were few lives in the world that could possess him, because this task would be even more difficult than Su Ming possessing Yikang in the past. Almost the instant the old man descended into madness and the grey fog was about to escape at all cost, a gap tore open at the trunk of the Yikang tree that was Su Ming. The gap looked like a gaping mouth that could devour everything. Su Ming did not act quickly, but it was precisely because he was acting slowly that it brought such fear to the old man. That fear erupted endlessly from within him. He tried time and again to escape from the place while roaring in despair, but it was of no use. He could only watch as the tree that was Su Ming slowly opened its mouth and gradually revealed a ferocious sight that caused him to scream. No! Let me go! Don't swallow me! I can become your servant. I can make the entire Yu family become your servants. Don't kill me. I can conquer the entire black ink planet for you." The old man was already rambling at this point. The chance that he had been longing for tens of thousands of years had turned into the shadow of death. He had thought that this would be a chance for him to succeed, but in the blink of an eye, the tables were turned against him. He was about to pay with his life, and all of this was something that the old man could not accept. "What is your name?" Su Ming's voice reverberated in the air with an unparalleled pressure. His voice was the will of heaven, and it was something that could not be refused. Su Ming's question gave the old man hope that he had a chance to survive. He immediately answered without a single bit of hesitation. "Yu Han. I am the fourth progenitor of the Yu family, Yu Han." However, just as he said these words, the gaping mouth on the ikang tree that was Su Ming sucked in a sharp breath. With it, the 100,000 galaxies roared at the same time. All of them trembled violently as if the cosmos was about to collapse and as if the universe was about to be destroyed. During that instant, a shrill scream of pain filled with despair came from the grey fog that was the old man. The grey fog was sucked in, and in an instant, it turned into wisps of smoke that charged into Ikang's gaping mouth. "I've waited for tens of thousands of years. I've had the help from a dozen-something generations of descendants throughout the ages, and after waiting for so long, someone had finally arrived. I can't accept this. I can't accept this." The old man's distorted face appeared in the wisps of fog that had been sucked into Ikang's mouth. Hatred, despair, and a strong refusal to accept defeat filled his expression. Yet he could do nothing to stop any of this. He had thought that what would come to him would be a cultivator that he could exploit at will. Never had he expected that what would come to him would be a terrifying existence surpassing those of ancient ferocious beasts. At the time, no one knew anything about what was happening in the third gate of heavenly Tao. They could only see that the image of peace arrives when the elephant is here, which was the third gate of heavenly Tao in the sky at that moment and which was as huge as a mountain rock, was shining brightly. The light continued changing non-stop, so the image of peace arrives when the elephant is here looked as if it had come back to life. There were also loud booming sounds coming from within it that were reverberating in the air and spreading in all directions. Standing in the mid of the endless unconscious members of the Yu family was Yu Ru, who was looking at the sky with a calm expression. Her lips slowly curled into a faint smile, though it went unnoticed by all. That smile was very faint. In fact, even if anyone looked closely, it would still be very hard to see it. Only she herself knew just how happy she was during that instant. "How dare you attempt to snatch the apostle's body? Progenitor Yu Han, under the light of the sun god and moon goddess, you won't succeed." These words echoed in Yu Ru's heart, and they caused that faint smile on her lips just moments ago. As the third gate in the sky shone with a light that reached 100,000 feet wide, the ground beside Yu Ru started trembling violently. As it did so, cracks formed. These cracks intersected with each other and gradually spread out, turning into huge ravines. As they did so, 13 intersecting spots were formed around Yu Ru. Wisps of grey fog erupted forth from those places. As the fog spread out and gathered together, it turned into 13 figures that were several dozens of feet large. Within the 13 balls of fog, 13 incredibly old men could be vaguely seen sitting cross-legged on the ground. It was as if the fog around them was their protection, or else they would be unable to venture out. These 13 old men were the 13 people from the underground palace. Their faces were filled with excitement at that moment, and all of them had their heads lifted to look at the image of peace arrives when the elephant is here in the sky. Based on their numerous interactions with the fourth progenitor throughout the ages, they knew that when the apostle the progenitor had been waiting for arrived and they attempted to possess each other, the image of peace arrives when the elephant is here would shine with this sort of light. And there was no way that the progenitor, who had prepared for tens of thousands of years and could even use the strange power within the 3 gates of heavenly Tao, would have any chance of failure, unless he chose not to possess the apostle. Once he began the process of possessing, then eventually, the one who would walk out would be the progenitor. That was why all of them had walked out of the underground palace. They wanted to be there to welcome the progenitor when he ventured out. In fact, in the mid of their excitement, they could already imagine that when the progenitor ventured out, then he, who possessed the treasure that was peace arrives when the elephant is here, had control over the body of the sun god and moon goddess apostle, and was skilled in controlling the strange power within the 3 gates of heavenly Tao, would be able to lead the Yu family and make their family business incredibly great in Black Ink Planet. In fact, he could even bring them back to Divine Essence Star Ocean in search for the members of the other branch of the Gate of Tao race. They could restore the Gate of Tao to its former glory. It would no longer be impossible for them to do this. The progenitor will definitely succeed. Before long, he will come out of the image of peace arrives when the elephant is here. The day the Yu family will rise into power has finally come. When the 13 old men looked at the sky in excitement, Yu stood by the side indifferently. No one saw the hint of derision that shone briefly in her eyes. During that moment, the light from the third gate in the sky abruptly reached its brightest, looking like the sun in the eyes of anyone who saw it. The light from the gate shone on the ground and even brought with it waves of great, mighty pressure. A figure appeared within the image of peace arrives when the elephant is here. At the instant this figure took shape, the 13 old men on the ground knelt down in the mid of their excitement. We welcome the progenitor's aggression. We welcome the progenitor's aggression. 13 old voices rang in the air at the same time. The waves of sound formed by their voices were so great that they shook the sky and earth, rising into the sky with loud booms. Yu's face was also filled with devotion at that moment. As she lowered her head and worshipped the figure, she mumbled under her breath, "Congratulations to the apostle's aggression." However, her voice was drowned out by the noise of the 13 old voices, and no one noticed that what she said at that moment was completely different from the words of everyone else. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, the span of a dozen-something breaths went by. When the figure within the image of peace arrives when the elephant is here became clearer, the zealous voices from the 13 old men on the ground became stronger. We welcome the progenitor's aggression. All the voices in the world seemed to have been drowned out by this sentence at that instant, making it seem as if it would be the only sound that would echo in the world. The figure within the image of peace arrives when the elephant is here became increasingly clearer. 9 breaths later, a violent bang forced its way through the waves of sound filled with zealousness. Su Ming slowly walked out from the endless light coming from the third gate. He looked as calm as usual, and there was not a hint of change that could be detected on him. When he walked out, his long hair danced in the air, and his robes fluttered, giving him an ethereal air, but the dignified look in his eyes made him seem as if he was a will that surpassed the will of the universe as he stood in the sky, and if he stood on the ground, he would be the god that would surpass all existences on land. At the instant he walked out, the 13 old men on the ground let out the strongest and most zealous cry of their lives. We welcome the progenitor's aggression. Su Ming looked at the 13 old men on the ground and at Yu. Then, an incredibly eerie and strange smile that was difficult to grasp appeared on his lips.